our liberty.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Your Right to Know, brought to you by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. I'm going to be your host this evening, and with me, as always, my co-host, Mary Lotze. How are you doing tonight, Mary?
I am doing well, thank you, Andrew.
So the topic for tonight's show is a discussion about the critical importance of emergency preparedness. And for our guest, we have John Sweeney, Volunteer Chief of the Fitchburg Emergency Management. How are you doing, John?
Just fine. How about yourself, Andrew?
Good. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming this evening.
My pleasure.
And so, as a way to set the stage for the discussion today, please introduce yourself to our viewers and what your background and how does one prepare oneself to become an emergency manager?
Well, technically I am not an emergency manager. Fitchburg Emergency Management is a direct descendant of the civil defense. We are all volunteers. We have a boss who is the head of emergency management. He's our director, and he's underneath the fire chief. Now,
And so, just to let the people know, what does the Fitchburg Emergency Management concentrate on?
we have a supportive role with the Fitchburg Fire Department and also the Fitchburg Police, as well as any other city organizations that need us. We pump cellars in flooding situations. Sometimes we will set up barricades, especially at fire scenes. We do support for the firefighters. Usually we'll bring them water, help with any type of support roles, do lighting at fire scenes. We also do lighting at elections. We just finished up that during, it was Tuesday, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Where we lit up Memorial and also one other site so that people can have a nice, safe area to come into.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being said, I mean, this being 2023, we were pretty busy, in regards to flooding and such with all the rain that we've gotten.
Both Fitchburg and certainly
Yes.
Leominster.
And we were also put on notice in case of an emergency in Leominster as well, in case they needed assistance.
Like mutual aid, mutual support.
Yes, we did not respond, although our director did, and he assisted their fire department.
So I can speak for many of us when I say we tend to become concerned being ready and prepared for emergencies in the middle of an emergency. Typically in Massachusetts, we think snow, ice storms like the 2008 ice storm, which a lot of us had to go through, where we were without power for days on end. In fact, I think I got my power back, was probably 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah, a lot of people got it back Christmas Eve day.
Yep.
So, so we're here to talk about being prepared to provide your own power source, provide your own emergency kits. But again, we were hit with torrential rains. We can talk about being able to pump out your own basement. So the bottom line, John, how do you prepare for emergencies?
Well, the best way to prepare is educate. That way, with education, we can give people a basic skill set of what to look out for, how to stock up. Like, if you go to ready.gov, which is one of the federal sites, they will give you a full list of preparations that you can do. Considering the issues in this area, my suggestion would be to go with the FEMA-rated 1 gallon of water per person per day, and figure up to 3 days. And that's really not too terribly hard. That's for drinking and stuff like that, that can be a case of water. And then for cooking and things like that, that could be like 4 or 5 gallon jugs. So we're talking about $10 or so, depending on the cost of water.
Not high cost
huge.
or high storage area.
A week or two's canned goods and things like that. And if you're not used to doing the canned goods, make sure you've got a manual can opener. Basic stuff. But
Well, I mean, if you start talking about getting, making sure you have an emergency food supply,
Yep.
look at what happened when Market Basket went on strike.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
And, you know, basic
I'd
food
forgotten
items.
about that. And that's
were-
something you don't think of as emergency management.
But you
Yes.
you also have to think about, you know, what does that mean? If the trucks stop running, most grocery stores don't have enough food to supply 3 days.
Look at
That's
COVID
basically it. Yes.
COVID
with the
and-
supply chain, as they used to
And
say.
it
Yes.
wasn't just the Market Basket that was affected. Everybody was forced to go to the local Hannaford, which then put a strain on their supplies. And so, you know, area-wide, we had a serious. Actually, it was you know, almost all Market Baskets,
Right.
all the
Yes.
all the other supermarkets in the areas. They were. I remember seeing a picture on Facebook, which had a carton of eggs, and it's the little sign on it said, "When these hatch, we'll have chicken," because everybody was out of chicken.
That's cute.
Oh, my.
So,
Yeah.
you know, so emergency food supply is an important role. So
Without a doubt, and that's not considered a disaster. We could have the same issue with a trucker strike
Sure.
or something like that, considering like how long the strike for the TV screenwriters
yes,
went.
yeah,
But yeah, for basic preparedness for, oh my goodness, storms that you don't realize are coming, what I gave you for the water should be enough to carry you. Now, the reason why water is so important is, A, our water systems can have issues. A number of years ago, there was a water department south of us who had a bad chemical mix, and no one could even shower because it was actually burning the skin.
oh wow,
Which is why you need to have that basic kit of water plus whatever you would need for at least a week or two of food, which most people have unless they're daily shoppers or something like that, but you should always have enough for that.
I'm just thinking of elderly.
Without a doubt.
I don't think elderly keep enough food on hand, or food that can last a long time.
yeah. You know, I have family members
Yes.
who are a prime example of that.
Yeah.
They're elderly. They
Yep.
only go to the grocery store to pick up the essentials that they need, and then they go home thinking, you know, everything's going to be fine.
Yep.
But in a situation where it's an emergency, and the grocery stores either don't have what you need, or aren't open.
Yes.
There's no power, which is another thing that we need to discuss in regards to, you know, being able to provide your own, you know, type of, you know, rudimentary power.
Which is a good switch over to how long are we going to be without power. Now, for all of you who had family members who arrived after the ice storm, guess what? They're all teenagers now.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Your case, your
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. But yeah, my oldest daughter
Was a baby.
wasn't even a year old.
Yep.
Yeah, she wasn't even a year old.
Yeah, that had to give you a scare.
Oh, it was, considering that we just brought her home from the NICU and we couldn't, you know, take her out anywhere.
Yes.
So, you know, what we did is, of course, I learned from the 2008 ice storm, and I got myself a generator. But we basically took car batteries with an inverter,
Yep.
and we were able to power a small heater to heat, you know, the area that we were
Yep.
in, and we were able to charge our phones and run a basic laptop off of that. Of course,
Yes.
we had to go and keep recharging the car batteries.
Of course.
because one car battery would basically last a night.
If
you know?
that.
Yeah.
And you're talking about an inverter size, probably 1,000 watts, maybe
About
15.
That. Yeah.
Now, actually, I've got one of those, got 1,000 watter and 800 watter in my car.
Yeah.
Was just using one the other night, trying to light up the front of Memorial.
Yeah.
But inverters are relatively cheap. You can get 1,000 to 1,500 watt one for around $100, $120, give or take.
Are there inverters, excuse me, that you can buy that you can buy them as is, like a small generator? Because I certainly wouldn't know how to hook up a car battery and
actually,
make something out of it.
What they have now are they
MacGyver.
have like rechargeable. They
Yes.
have rechargeable power stations.
One of the trade names is Jackery. That's
Yep.
one of the better known
Okay.
ones. And you can go anywhere from 200 to 300 watts to probably, I think it's 4,000. But as with anything, if you're going to be charging it, stick around just in case, because sometimes these things have issues, and you should never be charging anything battery powered while you're sleeping or anything like that.
You should be alert and awake watching it.
Yes, just in
Observing.
case. But inverters are a pretty good setup. The idea is that you take, well, in your case, it was probably, was it a car battery or deep cycle?
It was a deep. It was like almost. It was a marine battery. A couple of marine batteries.
That is a deep cycle. A car battery you would suck down like that.
Yeah, no, these were marine batteries.
So they have come up with some nice lithium cells like that. But yeah.
So now, we, in an electric, if we lose power, it's always good to have a generator, whether a standby generator or a portable generator, or now we've talked about these things that you can buy that would keep a refrigerator going, would
Yes.
keep your, would what
Without
would
a
be
doubt.
the 4,000?
About a 3,000. Basically, a majority of the companies that make these have a sheet or a page that tell you exactly what you can power for how long.
How long?
And a large majority of these battery-powered boxes also come with solar cells.
Yep.
So you can recharge it from the sun too,
Now,
which is handy.
What about cell phones and things like that? These are essential. These are essential items in an emergency.
Well, yes and no, because if we're dealing with a wind issue or something like that, we aren't going to have cell towers. So
They'll blow down. Isn't that what happened during the ice storm again? The cell towers on top of.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
So having a secondary communication like landline isn't a bad idea. Or even if you have family within a couple of miles, the old CB radio, which isn't utilized that much, but your messages can travel that far. And that's another fairly cheap thing.
Radios,
Yes. So
battery powered.
Well, let me tell you what I've got for camping and stuff like that. I've got one of those crank battery radios. They give me Weather Channel, AM, and FM. Now, majority of the time, the National Weather Service has recorded messages for what the weather's going to be like. They also put out emergency messages as well. And you're talking $40, $50 for a decent one of these. Some of them even have shortwave and things like that if you're into that. But you can plug it in and charge it that way. You can crank it and charge it. You can crank it and charge a cell phone if you need that. A lot of people carry like power banks to fire up their cell phones if they talked a little too much or something.
Yeah.
And those are very handy too. I carry one in my CERT pack, which is what emergency management gives out, because my cell phone, because I have a scanner app on it, tends to drop power pretty fast. Now, a scanner app will, if everything is working, power-wise and things like that, can tell you where some of the issues are. It'll let you listen to, like, Fitchburg Fire Department. For that channel, I think you can also listen to Leominster and Lunenburg and a couple others, I think. But that can be handy just to let you know what's happening. A personal scanner at home where you're also listening to the fire department can let you know if traffic situations and things like that.
So that night we had the Leominster, that was September 11th. My cell phone went off with a dire warning, and it said stay in place, life or death. Who puts out a warning like that? It's a canned message. I mean, it's the same message that went to anyone who had a cell phone. Does that come from Fitchburg? Does it come from the National Weather Service?
In that case, it might have either been the National Weather Service or FEMA, I believe, or possibly MEMA.
MEMA.
Now, I believe
Massachusetts Emergency Management.
I believe they're going to be having a nationwide test of those alert systems coming up. Is it the 5th, I think, of October? Something in that general time range. So expect your phone to be talking to you.
I think that's great.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Now, that actually brings me to my next question. In the recent mayoral debate, emergency preparedness was a key focus of questioning.
Yes.
As a sitting councilor of Ward 3, I was getting calls from residents of Ward 3 regarding flooding and all those concerns during the heavy rains that we had. My question is, the emergency alert flow from the state or other sources now, there was something that was called Code Red, which was discussed during the mayoral debates. Can you give us a little bit of information about that?
Well, I've carried Code Red on my phone for probably 4 or 5 years now.
Is it an app?
Yes, exactly. If you go to the city website, it'll walk you through signing up for it.
Oh.
And now Code Red in this town is activated in areas. So you may not hear anything that's happening about something that would be an immediate concern to someone in, say, North Fitchburg or something like that, but they're getting that app fired up at them. Sometimes they'll also do like a reverse 911 or something like that. It was definitely quite the storm on the 21st.
So how you go right to the city of Fitchburg and you can, they will give you instructions on website, and they will give you instructions on Code Red.
Yes, there's a little logo on their website.
I want to put that on my phone.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I have it on my phone as well, and I do like it because when during the rainstorms that we got, not just the July, but also the one from Leominster, we also got quite a bit of rain.
Yes.
And I was getting alerts for the streams of West Fitchburg and the Upper Shea Street, basically saying that flooding concerns. And as the ward councilor, I was in my truck driving through the storm, going to check to see where all these alerts were coming from. And so, yeah, it was a great help, and it was very informative, and it allowed me to go and help more residents.
Yes.
So, John, who should people call? I'm sitting home alone in my house. My alert goes off, tells me a bad storm is on the way, or a bad event has happened.
Yep.
Who do I call?
Well, it depends on what's happening. If nothing's happening in your house, you go down, you check and make sure your sump pumps are working. Make sure you've got the water or whatever, and you're
Start filling the bathtub.
Exactly. Now, if we're on the coast or down in Florida, what they have is they have a bag that'll fit in a bathtub that you fill up and close, and there's a pump on it. And that way, everything in there, if you have dust or stuff like that, it's not going to end up in your water.
It's clean.
So, and it'll carry you for days and days. Amazon carries it, any number of other places carry it. It's an interesting gadget because we're so far inland, and Fitchburg, believe it or not, weather-wise, is truly blessed. We haven't had a, oh my goodness, loss of like a bridge We were just talking before.
we were.
1987, I believe, when
The Bemis Road?
the Bemis Road
I
Bridge.
remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
And that wasn't the rain coming down. That was when a dam busted.
And sent a surge?
Yes, and that sent a surge.
And Fitchburg has a lot of dams that, you know, they're aging.
Yeah.
You know, they take a lot of money to maintain, and let's face it. I mean, some of these dams are getting quite old.
Although
and something like that could happen.
it could, but since that time, and since a number of other bridges, dams have broken, the federal government, the state government, and local governments have plans and inspections so that they know what condition these dams are in, so we don't get surprised by them. What happened in Leominster really kind of surprised me, because from what the pictures I've seen, that was a concrete dam.
Yeah.
That should have held, but I'm sorry, 9+ inches of rain here.
Yeah.
Now,
500-year storm, I think.
exactly. The big thing, though, you got to wonder, why are these streets suddenly breaking up? Because I was out and about when the tropical storms came through. I was running a shelter in that weather, and we didn't have this breakup. The thing is, it's been so wet all year that the water table was just right below the concrete, the road bed, so that all the heavy rains had to do was get underneath it and wash it out, which is the actual flooding back in July, the first one, not the second one, where we pumped a few cellars. It wasn't that bad, but we were seeing streets break up.
That was that Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
St. Anthony of Padua area.
Yes.
yeah, actually it was down by St. Joe's too.
Okay.
But I think it's because the roads are basically just floating on water, so there wasn't anything holding it. Whereas if we would have had a low water table, the water would have just run down. It was just an unusual set of circumstances. It wasn't the quality of the roads, it was the fact that they were floating.
Now, in that case, so how important is it to have an evacuation plan from your home? We see now roads are gone. So you might say, I'm going to take my kids and the dog to grandma's house who lives high and dry in some other place. You can get there because every time you try traversing a road, it's buckled, it's flooded. How important is it to have a multi-avenue access plan?
Okay. The big thing is you need to sit down with your family and your friends and get together and set up if something happens to us, we'll go here. If something happens to Grandma, she'll come here. Because majority of disasters are local. Very much like the flooding on September 11th. We lucked out. It was like 2 or 3 inches for us. Wasn't too much business. But you should always have at least 3 or 4 routes to get to all the places you're planning on going to. And if you're talking to your family and they're willing to work with you, then you're in pretty good shape, because in the event that they have a problem, they could be coming to you. So it's the difference between you being in a cold house and cold showers and you being in a warm house with nice warm showers or anything in that range. But normally in an instance like that, there will also be shelters set up. Leominster ended up setting up, the initial one was the library, and then Skyview Middle School was set up.
And I think another school was used also, wasn't it?
That wouldn't surprise me.
Okay.
They did a very nice job. Red Cross is very involved in that. And the mutual aid system worked very well. I believe there's over a dozen different fire departments working in Leominster at that time, with multiple trucks. including Fitchburg.
Now, we've set up our own shelters
Yes.
at the senior center in the Armory.
Armory.
Yes.
So, and I've actually worked with you on a few occasions.
Yes, we have.
And I've actually taken the training to have the proper education to help set up the shelter, but I've also had the training to help with animals as well.
Yes.
Oh.
Because you have to think about that.
We do.
Are you
People
going to
won't leave their
Rover
homes.
behind
Yep.
and
No.
then leave and just leave
That-
him alone in the
remember
house?
Hurricane Katrina? That was one
Yes.
of the
Yep.
things that caused so many deaths, is people refused to leave their pets behind. And I think that was sort of an expose on why people were afraid and they needed to do something about people's animals.
Well, also, I mean, back in with the blizzard of 2008,
Yes.
people stayed in their homes for fear of vandalism.
Yes.
And they braved the cold with blankets, and I was right there with them. I know, I know exactly what that. So, how does one know when a difficult situation changes to life or death? When that situation is upon them and they need to leave in their home in their car, what's the golden rule?
Well, my golden rule always has been that if you are cold and you're having hypothermia problems and you're not able to get warm and stay warm, it's time to go. As I was saying, have your plans with your friends, your families, and also, I'm a great believer that if we can set up neighborhood watches, because if they had a solid neighborhood watch system at that time, people wouldn't have been afraid of people breaking into their houses and such. And people could relieve each other. You cannot survive in a long-term situation alone, because you got to sleep sometime, and if you're up for 72 hours, you're just going to have major problems health-wise, and you're not going to catch the problems that you're going to have.
Just because we have just a minute left, how many volunteers do you have?
Right now, active, we've got about 5 or 6 who...
If people are interested, they watch the show, they're interested, how do they become a volunteer? Who do they contact?
Well, they can either contact our emergency management director, or they can...
Who would be in the fire department itself?
Or they can contact us through our Facebook site.
Okay, and that is?
Fitchburg Emergency Management.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight and joining Andrew and me on Your Right to Know. And to our viewers, we thank you for watching Your Right to Know and sitting in with the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. This is such an important topic. I know it's not political. This applies to everyone right across the board. And we hope we can give good information to everyone. Don't forget, we support your conservative values, and we encourage you to join us. Why? Because we believe that the GOP stands for growth, opportunity, and prosperity for all people, and we always stand for freedom, and might I also add, we always stand for your safety. Thank you and good night.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and